Ceann Comhairle, I have to say I'm just amazed at the announcements this morning. Dr. Cillian de Gascoigne, who is the laboratory director at UCD over NVRL, and we now have to decide, or both ministers have to decide, who's going to take care of the shortfall caused by this announcement. Some 30,000 testing capacity is now virtually not going to be done. We don't know who's going to do it, what preparations are made, when we're locking down the country and telling people that it's their fault. Government, we've heard the deputies say that we have to take responsibility as citizens. Well, this is a responsibility that nobody can take care of, only the government. I've also been in receipt of the VideoPro plan and the PCS certification for that sanitizer. PCS certification is very difficult to attain, and most products here in Ireland that are already on the shelves don't have it because it costs €300 and it's not required. But because it's being used in the instant of COVID protection, it is required. And now we have the Department of Agriculture telling us that tests were carried out and the product, exactly the words that they've notified, our tests show some sanitizer does not comply with regulation. So how has this product received certification? And how many other products have certification that they shouldn't have? So I have two things to put to the Minister on that. I would ask them that they speed up the certification for compliant products so that replacements and supplies become available and we can keep our schools open, and that they investigate how product VideoPro has received the PCR certification, or was it tested before it received it or after it received it and had to be withdrawn. They're the issues arising this morning, but in general, Ceann Comhairle, I do not agree with Deputy Durkan and those who are defending what can only be described as failure, state failure to put sufficient contact tracing in place and build extra capacity within the HSE and the ICU. And the government know that the patience of the general public is quickly wearing thin. These fines are being proposed because the government feel that stronger tactics are required to bring people into line. I can see the argument for reckless events to be broken up, and I can see that the deterrent is being proposed for that. But so many people see these restrictions as unjust, unfair, and a significant attack on their fundamental freedoms. Minister, the reality is that these COVID regulations are the most draconian laws ever to be imposed on the Irish people in the history of the state. Some of our most fundamental rights under the Constitution are being cast to one side. And by proposing these fines, the government will strike fear into the hearts of ordinary law-abiding citizens. Evidence of the previous lockdown shows that people will be afraid to even undertake essential journeys for fear of being punished. Minister, how will the regulations work in practice? I was elected by the people of Wexford to represent their views in the best way that I can. So let me just give you a flavour of the types of issues which have been raised with me. Farmers in rural areas with no internet skills or poor broadband can no longer buy cattle in the mart because they're banned from attending and standing at the ringside to place their bid. The retired people who haven't had as much as a penalty point between them, retired couple, are being threatened with fines if they dare to drive to the local park to walk their dog. And in rural communities, Ceann Comhairle, the local park could be 8 to 10 kilometres away, but many of our people, old or young, do not feel safe walking on winding roads with cars flying past. So will they be fined or threatened with fines? A widow or a widower who enjoys a round of golf a couple of times a week with their best friend for company, a sport played out in the fresh air on hundreds of acres with as much social distancing as you wish, now banned. The other incredible anomalies with sports: children can train for most sports except, it seems, tennis or golf. Two of the most socially distant sports that you can imagine. Children in the same house who play GAA, all good. The other plays tennis or golf, sorry, banned. The hard-working entrepreneurs who run SMEs may have spent thousands on preparing to reopen, and now they have to close yet again under threats of being financially punished by the state if they don't comply. These people have already been financially punished by the state enough this year. I've had calls from anxious college students and their parents from Wexford, wondering if a student will be fined for returning home on Friday, even after a week in college. Well, it's very easy for the government to flippantly tell those students that they must stay in their college accommodation, but it's not always as simple as that. We in this House don't have to remain in Dublin all week. We can return home when our week's work is done. And I want to clarify, can the students do the same? I also have concerns about the provisions to fine the owner of a property if any illegal gatherings take place. Ceann Comhairle, can the Minister clarify how this is going to work, and will this mean that the landlord will face a fine for the behaviour of their tenants? If so, this is an outrageous situation. These regulations have so many grey areas with so much open to interpretation. In fact, quite often the government don't seem to understand what the regulations mean, or their understanding seems to be significantly different from minister to minister, given that there was such confusion during the press conference the other night about when midnight on Wednesday was. And for many people, understanding the inconsistencies in these regulations will be like trying to understand the terms and conditions on a mobile phone contract. You'd need a PhD. I believe the Irish people take great dignity from the fact that our police force operates on the principle of policing with consent. These will be the most draconian laws that the Gardaí will ever have to be asked to police, and I am asking the ministers and the government to clarify same.